shed. I know it's been a while, and sorry for that, but you know, life gets in the way. Holidays and that, you know, to Barbados, as if. So yeah, there's been a few delays, but anyway, look, the point we got up to last time was we've got the engine back together. It's back in the bike. I've just got to sort out the throttle cable, which is here. So I'm probably going to reuse this because the cable's not in bad nick, but the only problem is we've got a missing nipple. So that's for the oil pump, and so yeah, like I say, it's missing. So I'm going to have a go first that we'll solder a new nipple on that, but I may have to reduce this slightly just to get a bit more length on that cable, but that's another day. So the reason there's been a bit of a delay is because I'm a bit disorganised, and I was waiting for some more plating to be done for another job so I could sneak in some other bits with it. So what I've sneaked in is my brake hoses, and I'll stick a little picture up here of what they looked like before, and these haven't been painted, they've been zinc plated, and then they've got a black passivate on them which will eventually go a bit green. Like these are starting to go. So this is that's what they look like to start with, and this is what they look like after they've been exposed to a bit of oxygen, and it just looks real cool. So this one here goes to the rear caliper, so we'll fit that tonight, and also got a pair. I've got 2 sets done mile hour over there because, you know, obviously you can never have enough brake lines, can you? Yeah, really just to see which ones were the best when they come out. So nice reveal. Look, looks brown new, that. Okay, so there's the 2 front lines. I think there should be another one, but I think that's already on the bike. Yeah, so there's another little one that goes to a distribution block up here. I'll move these electrical pipes out of the way. So there's one that comes from your master cylinder up here, and that goes down to this distribution block. So tonight we'll be focusing on getting the brake lines in, up to the distribution block, then the master cylinder, and then the rear brake, and then we should have some brakes, which is always handy. So the first line I'm going to fit is this one. Okay, so this is a rear brake. I've just got to go through a couple of hoops. I need to find a spanner for that. So this is the master cylinder, tucked behind that. Another thing that I've been getting on with is rebuilding this whole area. There's lots of little bits and pieces that will have to go on, so I've just built that up as a sub-assembly. So on here, there's these little studs that stick up, which brings me on to, it's all about finishing off, and these are not, they're okay, they're not in bad nick actually for their age, but I don't like the way that they sort of yellow and they look a bit crap after obviously the bike's nearly 30 years old, so bits of plastic and that don't look great. So I sort of set about thinking, oh well, I'll make some new ones exactly like that. So that's the first one that's come out of the mould, so I think you can agree that it's certainly the right shape. And now I've ordered some clear resin because this is more sort of opaque white. It's almost translucent. So I've ordered some clear resin, like water clear, and I'm going to start to use this pigment and just do different levels until I get as close to a factory finish one. Obviously it's not going to be sort of a horrible shitty colour. It's literally, I'm going to try and achieve this finish. So when I have achieved that, I'll stick some of these on the internet because I'm sure other people will want them. But you know, as a reproduced part, it's you know, as you can see, it's a pretty close match. So there's a few more little bits I need to do, tidy the mould up a little bit, but that's where we're at with that. So for now, I'm going to put these ones back on. They literally just push on like that, and they are to keep the brake line out of the wheel. And plastic, yeah, has a old plastic generally has a good. It generally breaks, so it becomes brittle. The plasticizers that make it flexible sort of leach out over time when it's exposed to UV. Makes it brittle, and one of them, the one I've copied, is starting to show signs of cracking as well. So I thought, yeah, I like a challenge. I'll have a go at that. I've still got to connect the torsion bar to this. That's why it's rotating like that. There's a bar that goes from here up to there, so we'll fit that one light. Like I say, tonight we're just focusing on getting the brake lines on, and we'll get them bled up, and I'll show you a method of how I bleed the brakes. I've always found it works well for me, so if it works well for you, knock yourself out. Literally, don't knock yourself out. It's got a little flag on there. Alright, and in here, there's a little groove. So that tells me that that one goes on this side. So this is what they call a banjo bowl. I don't know why it doesn't look anything like a banjo. Can't play it. What it does is you put oil, comes in one pipe and it goes into this little hole, which is then cross drilled all the way through, and it's met up with there as well. So it creates a nice path for your oil to come from your master cylinder into here and then distributed through that fitting as well into the other pipe, also out of the secondary pipe. What you must remember is that each connection has a little crush washer on it, a little seal. You've got to remember to put those in. So that first one is from the master cylinder. The second one, don't forget to put the seal in. So well, I might just check that, because although it looks right, in a place to find by noise, got you looking around like. Oh, that's alright. Well, that was correct. No distractions. So that little fork up the top looks like it traps that one as well. Just remember, so it keeps everything in line. Housing, schools, crime, unemployment. Hear what I'm saying? So do everything up finger time, make sure nothing's binding up. And they've got a little set in them as well. Okay. And that's just to kick it away from the front wheel. I've just spotted something else as well. So before things are done up too tight, just there's a little on the back of that, on the back of this, there's a gap. Look. So I think this needs to come out of that groove. All will be revealed. Okay, so this little notch here traps that pipe. Okay. So when that's done up, fast forward here. So the way I bleed me brakes is I use a big old syringe with a manky bit of pipe on, but you've got to make sure that that fits on the bleed nipple quite tight. And what we're trying to do is fill this pipe with oil all the way up to the master cylinder. Now, some people try and fill a reservoir and then pump the lever, and you'll be there all night because you'll get a little airlock in here, and then it just won't pump anything. So you'll be there all night, you won't get your brakes sped up. So the way I do it is I bleed it from the nipple, or the bleed nipple, and effectively what I'm trying to do is push oil from this point up, down through the caliper, up this tube, through that block and up to here. We're not trying to get all the air out. What we're trying to do is to get oil right up past this point here. Because once it's up this point here, then you can use this to bleed the air out. Alright, so we'll crack on. Make sure you use a good quality oil. Don't use oil that's been sitting around for too long, because it's what they call hydroscopic. So it will pick up water, it absorbs water, and the problem with that is that when your brakes get hot, the water will boil and create air bubbles in your brakes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this syringe full, so keep an eye on your reservoir. The other thing you can use is .5 brake fluid. If you use .5 is silicone based. I don't have any at the moment, otherwise I would put that in there. And the good thing about that is it doesn't matter if you spill that bit on your paintwork. It's not going to damage your paintwork because it's silicone based. So we've pushed oil into both cylinders from down for low. We've cracked the fittings at each point to try and get the air out of this pipe. So what we see now is this bleed nipple's cracked off, so it's just open slightly. All you can do is just try and pump the fluid backwards and forwards, and you can see it's pushing the syringe back. So when I pull in, so that's telling me that we're starting to now, there's still tons of air in it, but what we've got now is the ability to bleed the brakes how you traditionally do it. So what we can do is keep an eye on and make sure you've still got some oil up the top. So essentially what we're trying to do is get enough oil in the master cylinder to be able to hydraulic the calipers. So that's where you want to be. Okay, so that's just starting to get a break, just right at the end there. So from that you can bleed them traditionally now. So the way you do that, you carefully put a bit more fluid in the top. You can leave your syringe on there. Obviously making sure you don't spill any fluid. So put a bit of pressure on, just crack that open, do it up, let it off. Give it a little pump. I was struggling like hell, and normally it's quite easy. Just syringe it backwards and forwards, give that a pump, get the air out fine. But it didn't feel right, and it just would not. There was an air lock in it somewhere, I just couldn't get it out. So I had a quick look in the master cylinder, and there's where the oil feeds into the back of it, there's a big hole, but in front of it is a little bleed hole, and that allows the pressure to balance in here, and that's, I think on the other one it was blocked. So I've got another master cylinder, spare one, so I chucked that on there, it bled up straight away. So first of all, syringe it from the caliper down here, and to push fluid into the caliper and up into this. And as soon as you start seeing it in the reservoir, then you can start pumping that, and then you can bleed it conventionally. So you pull that in, release your bleed nipple with a syringe on it, or a pipe going into a pot of oil, and then lock it off, release it, and just bleed it conventionally. But until you've got some oil in here, it's almost impossible because you've just got an airlock. So that's what was causing me the trouble. So that's sorted out now. So now we're going to move on to the back. So all I've done is I'm probably going to change that eventually if I can get another one. But for now, this is the only one I've got. So I've topped this up, the little oil reservoir. Master cylinder here is hidden behind that plate. So fill this up and you'll see the air bubbles, so it's just filled this pipe up, that's all. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this bleed nipple and pull a vacuum on it, and hopefully that should, if we give that a few pumps, should pull a bit of fluid down this pipe. So that's the plan. So what I'm going to do is hold the vacuum, and you can see now it's pulling oil up. You can see it's cloudy, so it's absolutely full of bubbles. So just to help it, give it a couple of pumps. You'll keep your reservoir topped up. So just be careful when you're pushing oil back that you don't overfill your reservoir. But you can see it now, look, it will drop because I'm pulling a vacuum here. So what we'll do is we'll just lock that off, leaving the syringe on it. Give that a couple of pumps, and it's already got a brake pedal. So what I'm going to do is let it settle for a little bit, because I want the oil, any air in there, just to create. At the moment it's cloudy, so it's got really tiny bubbles. What I want them to do is join up and make bigger bubbles, so then they're a lot easier to bleed out. So we'll leave that for a minute, but in the meantime I'm going to put that stabilising rod back on. This is the brake torsion rod. So that sits up in here, right under there. So there's a little bracket in the frame, and this little clip sits in there as well. So that sits up in there, and this goes in there. And what that does is, if it didn't have it, when you put your foot on the brake and it locked this disc, what it would do is it would try and pull a caliper around with a wheel. So what you need to do is to stop that from turning, you need to somehow connect that to the chassis, and that's what that rod does. So on the back of here there's a hole for a split pin. Because it's a safety critical part, it's to do with the brakes. It has a nut on it with a split pin, so if that nut comes loose, the nut can't fall off because there's a split pin. So it's always a good idea that when you do stuff up, make sure it's done up to the right torque, the right tightness. And if there's split pins and things, put them in when you do the nut up, otherwise you'll forget it. So this little plate sits up there. So that, if you look carefully, is a special nut. Well, those two little tabs create a lock on the shaft. So that's a little lock washer or a lock ring in there. So you do it up, and if it tries to undo it, it just jams it. Again, because it's on the brakes. So now we can, because we've now bled the master cylinder from the reservoir down to the caliper, all we need to do now is get the little bit of air out of what's settled in that caliper. The way we do that is conventionally, so just push this a couple of times so you feel a bit of pressure on the brake. So when you're holding the pressure on the brake, crack that, push it all the way down, do that up, release that slowly, couple of presses, so it's already feeling better already. Again, a bit of pressure on there, so you can see the bubbles coming up. Couple of presses, making sure that you haven't run out on the reservoir. Let me just check that. Oh, I could do a little bit more in there. So the danger is that you're too much concentrated on bleeding the caliper and you run out of oil up here. So again, what I'm going to try and do is get all of that through. So press it down again, so another nice big bubble come out there. A couple of little pumps. Crack it open, push down, do it up. So I don't know if you can see, but if you watch here, you can see some really fine little bubbles coming up. And those tiny little bubbles are what make your brakes feel a little spongy. They should, your brakes should feel nice and positive. Reservoirs, you get a little diaphragm, so that sits in the top. If you overfill your reservoir, when you push this down, you'll end up with oil everywhere, so just be careful. Be careful when you put that back on. So that creates a little seal between the little rubber diaphragm and the top of the oil. There we go. So yeah, thanks for sticking with me for this project. I know it's taken a long time, but sometimes life gets in the way of it. But yeah, I'm sort of back on it. We haven't got a great deal more to do. I'm still waiting for the plastics to come back, but we've moved them on a bit. So somebody else is doing the prep on them now. And the guy who painted me frame is just going to receive them all prepped and in primer. another little project, little side project that I'm doing, working on, is I don't know if I mentioned it before, but earlier on, but I'm trying to replicate these because I think they let the bike down a bit. You go to all this trouble of getting everything looking lovely, and you have to put up with putting bits like that back on it. So I'm just trying to perfect my mould, which is, you know, it's almost there. There's just a bit of detail in there that I need to sort out, and in there, because that little clip is what holds them on, so I've got to sort the insert out that goes in there. I'll do a bit of work around that, and also, what else did I spot? There was an air bubble in that bit, so that needs a little air vent in the mould. Sort that out. Another little air bubble there. I'll probably pressure cast these as well. So these are made of polyurethane. It's a two-part. It's incredibly strong when it's set. You know, it's almost identical to the original material. This is obviously a coloured one that you can put pigments in, but I don't like that because it doesn't look like the original. So what I've done is I bought some clear, like water clear polyurethane, and I'm going to use a tiny bit of white pigment in it. Hopefully I'm going to get this opaque effect. So it'll be a lot whiter than that, but still be sort of semi-translucent. So that's the effect I'm going for. I stuck it on the Facebook page. You know, this is what I'm doing, and I've had quite a few people saying, yeah, make me a set, so I'll try and knock a decent mould up so I can produce a few for people, because I know little bits like that, you know, you want to finish the bike off right, and that's right in your eye line when you're looking at the bike. So if we can get some of these made for people, you know, it'd be happy days. And I think, you know, they'll only be about £10 million each, just to cover the development costs. You know, but no, they'll be affordable. Yeah, it's more the challenge of it, really. My brake lines I'm very happy with. So I sent these away, got them zinc plated. I'll stick, like I say, stick some photos on. And that's it. So next time, I think we'll be working on control cables. So throttle cable, which I need to do a little repair on, so I'll show you doing that. Choke cables, and then maybe try and stick the radiator on it, get some fluids in it. And then we should be fairly close to giving her a fire up. So yeah, thanks for sticking with it, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for the next exciting episode.